Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my channel. Really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I just got 600 pages of newly released Bryan Kohberger police reports that I just finished going through. I actually printed them all at Staples because there were so many, it was so much to go through on the computer. I'm going to go through what's new here. So many new accounts of people that I didn't know about at Washington State University who were complaining about Bryan Kohberger, who were creeped out by Bryan Kohberger. I've got those interviews in the new reports. Also, the most detailed account from surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen that I've seen yet. I'm going to break it all down for you in this episode of Bryan Ensign Investigates. Hey guys, so I have the 600 pages of new police reports from Idaho State Police that were just released as part of the Bryan Kohberger case. Obviously, now that the sentencing has happened, the gag order is lifted, all of these agencies are starting to release these reports. So I have 600 pages here. A lot of it is redacted, so bear with me. I figured the best way to do this was just to sort of read through the reports, read them to you so you can hear them for yourselves rather than me trying to summarize a lot of it. I went through everything one time and pulled the things that I thought were most interesting and new. But what I saw with the Moscow reports is I kind of had to go through them a couple times just because there's so much. So this is going to sort of be my first pass at it, and then maybe I'll do a future episode where I, go back to some other nuggets. But I want to start with, this is the narrative. The roommate, Dylan Mortensen, she gave a very detailed account to police. And a lot of this stuff is going to be stuff that we know the basics, but now we have the detail. So I'm going to read you Dylan's account of what she told the police when she was first interviewed. And then I'm going to get to, just so you know what else is coming up, there's a ton of reports from people who were in class with Bryan Kohberger at Washington State and colleagues of his who are also in the Ph.D. program. Just really disturbing stuff. I knew some of this, that they thought he was sexist and that he was rude to women in class, but this goes much deeper. So I'm also going to get to that after I read you this, what Dylan Mortensen said during her interview. So I'm a little sick. So let me cough first. All right. This is Dylan when she talked to police. She advised around 4 a.m. or 4:20 a.m. she heard Kaylee singing and playing music. She heard who she believed Kaylee was walking up the stairs, and blank advised she heard Kaylee say, "Someone's here," and she sounded frantic. And they don't name Dylan here, but I've just pieced together that that's who it is. Blank described Kaylee's tone as somewhere between talking and yelling. She believed it was Kaylee who was walking up the stairs with Murphy. She said she heard who she believed to be Kaylee running down the stairs. She advised Murphy was barking at this time. She does not believe Murphy is normally a barker. She further stated she believed it was Kaylee who was running down the stairs after she heard her say, "Someone is here." She further explained she does not know if she actually heard this or whether she was drunk and did not actually hear any of this. She heard the footsteps of who she believed to be Kaylee. She explained all the girls wear Doc Martens and that this is what she believed she was wearing, what she was hearing Kaylee coming down the stairs wearing, her Doc Martens, because of the sound of the footsteps coming down the stairs. Blank called Blank at 4:19 a.m., then Xana at 4:20 a.m., Kaylee at 4:20 a.m., and then Blank again at 4:20 a.m. Blank advised Blank told her about seeing fireworks. She texted Blank last time at 4:27 a.m. before she went to Blank's room. Blank then explained when she first opened her door and said she did not see anyone. The second time when she opened the door, she heard who she believed to be Kaylee crying, and Blank believed Kaylee was in the second floor bathroom. She then heard a male voice, which she stated she had never heard before, say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Blank believed the unidentified male was in the bathroom and with the person who was crying. She believes it was Kaylee who was the one crying. Blank stated that now, sorry, so there's some typos, but Blank stated that now she has gathered additional information and now believes it was probably Xana who was crying. At the moment of hearing the crying, she stated she believed it was Kaylee who was crying. She advised she knows the male's voice was not Ethan's. She described the last episode of Vampire Diaries, and she remembered it was two males rescuing a female. She explained it was not violent. She advised the male figure in the last episode was wearing all black, but Blank explained that that was normal for the series. Apparently they had been watching that. She's not certain whether she heard Murphy barking during the first time she opened her door, but she advised it was possible he was barking, but Murphy was moving away from the house. She described Murphy was a puppy, and Blank had just met him in August. She could not describe Murphy as being skittish. She advised she opened and closed her door a total of 3 times, and the 4th time is when she left her bedroom to go downstairs to Blank's bedroom. Blank advised she continued to call and text her roommates but received no answer. She provided the times she called and texted her roommates, and the time span she advised would have been between 4:20 a.m. and 4:27 a.m. She advised she never thought about an intruder, and in her mind, she stated she was not processing what was occurring as threatening. She's not processing it as threatening. She advised she believed the male was directing his conversation of who she believed was Kaylee. She advised she did not believe the male was directing that statement to her. In discussing why the offender did not harm her, it was discussed that it was possible the male knew her and wanted to protect her, and she said she understood that that was possible, but she denied knowing who the suspect was. Blank further explained she Snapchatted Ethan but received no answer from Ethan. Blank thought Ethan was still either at Blank Chi, Sigma Chi, or was at home. She was not certain. The first time Blank opened the door, she said her vision was blurry or fuzzy, but she advised she saw a figure of someone that was dressed in all black, and they were masked, and he was holding an item of what she initially perceived was a vacuum, but she said that did not make sense to her. She described the suspect as not being muscular, but being skinny and toned like a basketball player. She further described him as being taller than 5'10" frame by at least 3 inches, so he would have been 6 feet in height. She advised he had to have her call Kaylee and Xana, and she advised he had to have heard her call Kaylee and Xana, and she thought he would have had to have heard her calling for them, and she was confused as to why he did not come to her room. A lot of us have had questions about that. She described the item the suspect was holding, which was advised was like a cylinder, as she remembered a cop talking about how a bow. She was trying to ascertain if what she saw was in fact shaped like a bow. Further stated she thought that maybe it was a firefighter because of what Blank told her about seeing a firecracker. She advised he would have been approximately 3 interesting, the firecracker thing, by the way, 3 feet away from her, and she believed she saw him walking out the back sliding glass door. He had looked at her before walking out the back door. She was not certain if he could see her whole body or just her head. At 4:22 a.m., then Blank corrected her time and stated actually 4:23 a.m. She advised she texted Blank, and they conversed about someone wearing all black, and Blank said something to the effect of, "What the F, why is Xana wearing all black?" Blank explained she was not certain if she had been dreaming this or if it was real. Blank explained she saw the suspect holding something she believed to be cylinder-shaped and also shaped like a triangle at the bottom of the shape, at the cylinder shape. She advised the suspect was approximately 3 feet away from her, and he looked at her but was walking out the sliding door when she saw him. She said she saw his eyebrows. At approximately 4:23 a.m., she texted Blank to tell her she saw a masked suspect in their house. Blank responded at approximately 4:25 a.m., telling her to come to her Blank bedroom and that it's better than being alone. Blank then left her bedroom after opening the door the 4th time and ran to Blank's bedroom downstairs. Again, this is Dylan and Bethany, but they've redacted. Blank advised when she left her bedroom, she looked down the hallway to Xana's bedroom, and she could see Xana lying on her back in her underwear, but she thought at that time Xana was passed out. Blank stated she never went to Xana's bedroom, and she could only see Xana from the hallway as she was running to get to Blank's bedroom, Dylan to Bethany's bedroom. She advised she was too scared to go into Xana's bedroom, and she knew Blank was awake, and she knew to go there because she was scared. She saw Xana was wearing her underwear, and she explained Xana was comfortable enough with the roommates that she would wear her underwear around them, so this was not unusual. When asked about the lighting conditions inside the residence, she advised that possibly Xana's light was on, or the party lights were on, and that is how she was able to see Xana, because otherwise she would not have been able to see her lying on the floor without any lights being on. She was not certain if the bathroom lights were on, but she was not certain what lights were on, if any. She advised Xana did not say anything. Blank stated she did not think anything was wrong, so still didn't think anything was wrong. She later offered she may have been able to see Xana lying on the floor because they also had a Sensi light, and it could have been she was able to see Xana from the Sensi light. She explained she's been trying to determine what was real from everything that she had been talking about with Sergeant Blaker and myself. She advised she knew at the time with Blank, Kaylee, and Maddie were real because she has seen the video of them together, so there's video. She was not certain how Blank got home that day. She further explained she'd been trying to piece things together because some things do not make sense to her. She stated that she is being truthful, but some of what she's been discussing she's not certain is factual. She has been working through it, trying to remember what happened. Blank was asked if the female who was crying was saying anything, and she advised no, the female was only crying and the male was the only one talking. She described the item the suspect was holding as cylinder-shaped and was also triangular-shaped. She could not remember if the lights were on or off when she encountered the male suspect. She advised she does not know if this is even something she saw or it was something she dreamed. She advised the last time she saw Xana was at Blank House at approximately 11:04 p.m., confirmed this by checking her cell phone. Xana had been holding a white claw. She was at Blank at 12:49 a.m. That part I don't really understand. She further advised Xana and Ethan did not stay at Ethan's house with any frequency because of Ethan's grades. He could not reside at the fraternity. He had his own apartment, but she does not know where his apartment is because she had never been there. She knows Kaylee and Maddie were home when she went to bed, and Blank and from when she saw Xana lying on the floor, but she's not certain about whether Ethan was home. Stated she is certain at 3:11 a.m., Kaylee, Maddie, and she were all in the house. She was not certain about Xana and Ethan because she does not know when they came home. She denied perceiving a threat even after encountering the male in the hallway. So she denied perceiving a threat even after encountering the male in the hallway. She said there were people coming in and out of their house all the time. She denied remembering what his face looked like and said she could see that his head and mouth were covered, but she could not see his eyebrows, and further advised she was not certain she could see his nose. When asked, and she couldn't see, it says there she couldn't see his eyebrows. When asked if she knew what a balaclava was, she said no, so I asked Sergeant Blaker to show her a picture of a balaclava from his cell phone, and upon looking at the picture of a balaclava, she stated it could have been, that could have been it. She does not remember seeing his mouth or nose, but she could see his eyebrows. Now, when asked if any of her roommates told her about prior incidents involving anything that concerned them, she advised Kaylee had told them Blank and the other roommates about an incident a month prior when she was outside with Murphy about a subject who had been watching her. The subject was in the apartments above the girl's residence. Blank further explained that 2 to 3 weeks ago, while at Winco, Kaylee told her about a male subject who followed her from the Winco store, all the way to Kaylee's car. Even when Kaylee went to leave, the subject was standing by Kaylee's car. We've heard about that incident before. Also, 2 to 3 weeks ago, all of the roommates went to Starbucks together, and when they got home, their front door was wide open, and they do not believe it had been open when they left. She explained there were prior issues with the front door, so she said it was possible the door opened because there had been a snowstorm, and she explained possibly the wind caused the door to open. Also, when they got home, the washer was going, which she described was not unusual, but this also concerned her. She explained because of these things, they went to get Ethan's golf clubs to protect themselves when they searched the house. Blank explained weeks prior to the 13th, Kaylee told the roommate she heard a woman scream, but no one else heard it. Blank was asked if she was telling either Sergeant Baker or I anything to prevent us from solving this, and she advised no, that she understood my question, and she advised that she knew she did not sleep through the whole incident because she has texted communications and other things, and she knows that they would have required her to be awake. She advised she knows what she heard, especially about hearing who she believes was Kaylee crying and the male voice telling her that he was there for her. Interesting. She stated again she does not know how much of what she has been telling us was not factual because she's still processing the events. When asked why she believes she was spared after the male suspect saw her, she said she does not know why, and she does not believe anyone ever tried to open the door during the time he was in the house, and he could have easily have done so. And why would he have passed by her room multiple times? She volunteered that to come through the sliding glass door, the person would have had to have scaled a tall wall. She advised the suspect would have known her room would have been occupied because he appeared to have known the layout of the house. She also said it could have been someone who was in the house last year when the other girls were living in the house. She advised there was no one she knows who could have wanted to hurt the girls, and the girls were loved by everyone. She said she had never heard rumors which were negative about any of the victims. When asked about Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, advised the breakup was mutual, and they have their dog Murphy in common. And then she brought up some other names. She offered her DNA. She advised there might be difficult to locate the offender's DNA because they had conducted a deep clean of their residence leading up to the parents' weekend. Let's see. Some of this I'm reading for the first time, so bear with me. When asked if she could able to provide a description to police To a police artist, like a sketch artist, she said she would not be able to describe enough of the suspect to be helpful. She further advised the only thing she remembered about his face was his eyebrows were bushy, so that's where the bushy eyebrows came from. She advises she was confused about why the offender would have taken the patio door out of the residence because of the drop-off from the patio. She advised she remembers that cars do come by their residence a lot, and she said there was a black truck driving past the window, and she further said she was not absolutely certain that it was a black truck and apparently was confused. When asked what occurred after she went to Blank's bedroom, she said they eventually fell asleep. She advised a friend of theirs was planning a memorial event, and that's helped her emotionally because at this point she's obviously dealing with everything. Let's see. When she awakened that morning, Blank was next to her in bed. We know that was Bethany. They were both too scared to leave the room to even go to the bathroom. 11:23 a.m., 10:23 a.m. said she texted Maddie. We knew about these text messages. Then explained when she reached out to Blank in the text message, which Blank told her it was 10:50 a.m., but she thinks Blank was mistaken, told her she would send to their house. Sorry, there's a lot redacted here. It's hard to understand. She advised they stayed in the house when the police arrived, and the police were putting the tape up. Then they realized there had been a crime, and when they saw the ambulance arrive and leave, Blank told them they would not leave unless there was no reason to stay. She then advised said that the vandal alert came out, and that's when they realized that their friends were actually gone. When asked if she checked the house for anyone else when she initially came home that night with Blank, and she was asked if she had to unlock the front door, and she advised she believed she had to unlock the front door to get into the residence. She advised when she first got home, she remembered the sliding door was closed, but she did not know if it was locked. She advised when she first got home, she went to Kaylee's bedroom to let Murphy out of Kaylee's room, and Kaylee's lights were on and no one was in Kaylee's room. Murphy came back into the house after going outside. So, first of all, my heart goes out to Dylan. I mean, I know I read all of that kind of fast and unemotionally, but you just imagine what she must have been going through during this police interview and what she's still going through. So that's really the most detailed statement of Dylan's that we have heard to yet, that's now been released in this report. So again, lastly, I'm going to get to which was among the craziest to me, all the reports from the other students who were in class with Bryan Kohberger, but I want to read you some of this. This is a detailed police report about what officers saw when they first went into the scene. At noon, NPD was dispatched to an unconscious person inside the residence. When they arrived, 2 household occupants identified as Blank and Blank, along with 2 other females and 1 male, were outside the residence. The male identified Blank stated when he had entered the house, he grabbed the knife from the kitchen and cleared the first and second floors, which we knew about this, and then placed the knife on a table inside the living room. When officers entered the house, they found 2 deceased residents, Kernodle and Chapin, inside a bedroom on the 2nd floor. The officers also found 2 more deceased residents, Gonsalves and Mogan, in a bedroom on the 3rd floor. All the victims appeared to have multiple stab wounds. The sliding glass doors located in the kitchen, 2nd floor rear of house, was open, and there was a set of footprints in the melting snow leading into and away from the residence. So footprints. There was 1 shoe print near the western edge of the property leading west into a neighbor's yard. In the front of the residence, north, were 5 vehicles belonging to the deceased residents. Now, sometime in the early morning hours, Blank was awoken and opened her room door and heard a male say, "It's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you," and crying. She then shut her door. A short while later, she opened her door again and saw someone apparently 5'10" tall, dressed in all black with a ski mask, standing in the kitchen. She made eye contact with the person and could see they were Caucasian through the cutouts of the eyes. She shut her door again and texted Blank, whose bedroom is on the Blank, told her to join her in her room, and Blank ran downstairs where they fell asleep. Let me see if there's anything else interesting here. They just go through really describing the whole, I could see a female, from the living room looking into the west bedroom, I could see a female Kernodle lying near the center of the room. Her legs and arms appeared to be covered in blood. As I entered the bedroom, I saw multiple drops of red liquid near the entrance and multiple red-colored drips on the door above and below the doorknob. A male, Chapin, was laying in the bed, partially covered with a blanket and comforter. His neck and chest were heavily covered in a red liquid. Multiple walls appeared to have red-colored cast off, and there were multiple areas on the floor with pools of red-colored liquid. So all of this is just awful to hear about. They talk about sort of the condition of all the different rooms. As I walked south up the stairs, they switched back and forth. On the center wall banister were red-colored liquid smears. They appeared to be blood smears. At the top of the stairs was a small hallway. Directly to the left was a bedroom, Gonzalez's. The bedroom was clean and the bed unmade, and a black-colored coat laying on the ground next to the bed on the left side. On the right side, east of the hallway, it ended with a bathroom. As I entered the bedroom, there was a bed directly to the left. On the bed were Gonzalez's and Mogen. They were covered by a beige-colored comforter with a large pool of red liquid near the center of the comforter. Multiple walls and the ceiling had multiple areas of red-colored cast-off. It's just awful. Mogen had multiple visible cuts on her face. Gonzalez had severe trauma to her face and visible cuts with a large amount of dried red-colored liquid on her face, though there appeared to be aspirated blood coming from her mouth. It's just also awful. Near Mogen's left hip was a tan-colored leather sheath partially covered by the comforter. So there's the sheath. On the door edge, I saw multiple red-colored transfer smears. The upper mark was at approximately my shoulder height. All the red-colored liquids were in the room were consistent with blood. And then it goes through basically all the different pieces of evidence that they took from the house. So that's the detailed report on when officers first went into the house. So again, there's a lot for me to get to in all of these reports. And I'm gonna have to do more episodes because there's other interesting details. But the last thing I wanted to get to today is, and there's a lot of them, so I'll try to go through not everything, but these are all people who were at Washington State University, whether they were staff or other students with Bryan Kohberger, who complained about Bryan Kohberger. Let me see here. So let me start here. This interview is conducted, and all of this is redacted, so bear with me. But this was someone who had contact with Bryan Kohberger because Kohberger was a student seeking criminal justice doctorate. They had met several times to discuss requirements for Kohberger's doctorate studies, so sounds like a staff member. They'd met twice in social settings, described Kohberger as socially awkward around people. He did not see any other behavior that he thought was odd, but did tell Kohberger was removed. This is someone in Pullman, Washington, also someone associated with Washington State University, said she held this, so she worked there, had held a position for blank amount of years. During the normal course of her duties, she regularly interacted with Kohberger. This occurred during new student course orientation. She described her initial reaction to Kohberger as ordinary, noting he came across as lonely, and that Kohberger's home state of Pennsylvania, they would strike up conversations about that. As weeks progressed, Kohberger would hang out in the hallways outside her office, described Kohberger as creepy, and he would simply stand at her desk and stare at her to her coworker, at one stage blocking the coworker in her desk area. He would also follow them out to their cars at the end of the day. He continued behavior that resulted in some kind of meeting happening. Said complaints from faculty members, administrative staff, and other students was referred to blank. These complaints referenced his rude and belittling behavior toward women and his unprofessional rude dealings with his blank. This resulted in a mandatory training class for all graduate students regarding behavior expectations. She said during Kohberger's attendance at this class, he sat at the back with his hands behind his head, staring at the ceiling. Blank said in total 9 complaints, so 9 complaints had been filed against Kohberger. And I'm gonna get to more here. This person said they met Kohberger at a pool party in July of 2022. The pool party occurred, says the location's blacked out. When she met Kohberger, they had a brief conversation, exchanged numbers. This doesn't really look that interesting, that she never talked to him again. This is a graduate student who also worked at the program at Washington State. Said that she was a fellow colleague of Kohberger. They were on a project together. She had limited interactions. She first met Kohberger in her office. They discussed the use of alcohol and the effects of marijuana on society. He told her he was not a drinker and did not understand why people drank. She said Kohberger really liked to discuss research and he liked to dominate the conversations. She described him standing in the doorway and hovering. She never felt uncomfortable around him. He had a macho demeanor about him and would appear to be puffed up. The only thing she felt was off about Kohberger was his intense stare. He would intensely stare at people even when he wasn't having a conversation with that person. Let's see what else here. This is another person who went to school with him at Washington State. Recalled Kohberger talking constantly during their class. He would pick fights with other classmates. She described an argument where blank left the class upset. She had heard he had an incident with a female professor where Kohberger disagreed with the grade he was given. Kohberger went to a male professor to complain about the grade. The female professor described Kohberger as weird, but he had never threatened her. In one instance, after class, Kohberger and her were alone. When she was trying to leave the classroom, he blocked her exit. This is another student. She described him blocking her with his physical stance. Kohberger said they would meet up sometime and talk about her professional career. She felt he just wanted to keep the discussion going even though class was over. After the homicides, Kohberger stopped bringing a cell phone to class and started bringing his laptop. She never saw Kohberger using the laptop. Prior to the homicides, she noticed him always using his phone because he was very studious. She believed he would take notes on his phone. She described the change in his appearance after the homicides. He would normally be clean-shaven and neatly dressed. After the homicides, he would come to class with facial hair and his dress would be disheveled. He also started wearing a thick black coat that he never took off during a 3-hour class. The weather did not really call for a heavy coat. Why was he wearing the heavy coat? That's interesting. Maybe to cover up injuries. All right, this is another person from Washington State, another interview. Stated she first met Kohberger on campus in a meet and greet. Said she invited the whole cohort to her apartment during the 2nd or 3rd week of school, and believes that Kohberger may have looked in her bathroom cabinet and observed her prescriptions because she does not openly share with others about her. Apparently he knew something about her. Said after her interaction with Kohberger, she began to distance herself from him and heard complaints from other female graduate students about how Kohberger would make them uncomfortable. Blank said as the semester progressed, there were numerous interactions with Kohberger, staring at students weirdly during class and spatially trapping fellow students in the student offices. Creepy. Stated when she was not around, Kohberger would spatially trap, that's the way to describe it, other students in their offices. Stated there was a spiff during class between Blank and Kohberger in which Kohberger was mansplaining to Blank. Said as the disagreement progressed. During questioning about Kohberger's overall performance in school, Blank stated she did not think Kohberger was doing very well, as they could get a general idea of everyone's grades through a process of elimination. She'd heard Kohberger's was inadequate to grade his papers because he was, this part's all blocked out and hard to understand, but maybe he wasn't doing well in school. When asked about Kohberger's demeanor after November 13th, 2022, she said Kohberger's demeanor did change. However, she attributed it to being called out about not being a good TA. Recalled Kohberger smiling at her more and being more respectful towards her. During additional follow-up, she stated Kohberger always wore a puffy coat to class, both prior to and after the homicides. Let's see. She provided additional examples regarding Kohberger blocking fellow students in their offices, just creepy. Said that he didn't have a girlfriend. Sorry, like I said, I'm going through all this in real time with you guys. Said during 2 extensive student presentations on sexual victimization on college campuses and stalking, Kohberger sat through them and did not interject himself into the conversation. Regarding the death penalty, Blank reported Kohberger previously appeared to be in support of the death penalty and made statements that the victim's family should have a say as to whether or not the death penalty really be imposed. They attended a barbecue together. It sounds like they had like grad student social events that they would all go to. To describe Kohberger as becoming quieter and quieter, not speaking up in class, that he arrived late on November 9th. Described an interaction with Kohberger after leaving one evening when she was Blank and Kohberger trapped her into conversation with him. Stated she was not aware of Kohberger having any social media. Blank said Kohberger showed her pictures of him in a hiking area. She said she found snow footprints leading to a back window of her apartment. Whoever had left the footprints had backtracked within the tracks, and her fiancé installed security cameras in response to the footprints. They all seemed really creeped out by him. And it's a lot of these same stories. Again, 13 reports pertaining to Kohberger, highlighting concerns regarding his behavior. This is about that again. Let's see. Another undergraduate saying that Kohberger's behavior was of concern, inappropriate behavior that was reported to professors. A lot of similar stuff here. Was focusing his attention on one woman in her office and engaged in unsolicited debates and arguments regarding topics she felt were not up for debate, and explained an incident in class where the topic of eyewitness misidentification was being discussed. Blank was explaining her viewpoints due to her background in the topic. Kohberger was agitated and argumentative because he did not agree with the explanation. They were trying to figure out if Kohberger had social media. It seems like a lot of the detectives, because they were asking about that a lot. Another student noted that after Thanksgiving break, Kohberger was very quiet, felt Kohberger must have realized his behavior was being accounted for and this was causing a lack of engagement. Oh, this is interesting. Blank said she saw Kohberger with injuries to his left hand while in class, sat to Kohberger's left 3 feet away from him, and during a class following Thanksgiving break, she had a clear vision of his left hand, described the injury as bruised knuckles. The redness was halfway up the back of the left hand from his knuckles, and he had a cut in his ring finger knuckle. Kohberger had told Blank he was a boxer, said Kohberger did not try to hide the injured hand. Interesting, so they spotted the injuries. I'm just making sure nothing else is coming through here. These are all just more accounts from other students and professors. So this is someone who says there were complaints about Kohberger and that he spoke to other staff and students. His stating about outspoken discriminatory comments which were homophobic, xenophobic, and misogynistic in nature. He would also stare at people and stand uncomfortably close or lean over women, making them feel uncomfortable. Another person says staff had talked to Kohberger as many as 5 times about his behavior. Sorry, there's just so much here. Blank recounted an incident in which her neighbor saw someone very close outside her window and Blank to make sure the door was locked. Blank did not know who that person was, but learned she lived fairly close to Kohberger. Blank learned from professors that Kohberger was fired as a teacher's assistant after fall 2022. So some of these women were even concerned he was like outside their house. This is another student. I asked Blank if Kohberger acted any differently after the homicides in Moscow. After thinking about it, Blank said it was right around the same time that Kohberger stopped coming into the office as much. Prior to that time, Blank had described Kohberger as somewhat arrogant and held her head up high when describing him. After that time, Blank said Kohberger kept to himself more and seemed to be less interactive. When she described Kohberger after the homicides, Blank kept her head down. Following her complaints that they received about Kohberger, he was disrespectful toward his professors. He instigated contentious arguments in class. He expressed concern over over other classmates, one that had a hearing disability. He only talked back to or criticized female professors and students, so he is sexist. He thinks highly of himself and doesn't interact well with others. A lot of this stuff, I mean, it's like crazy. They're all saying the same thing. More women feeling weird, like he was cornering them in their offices. Let's see. Oh, this is the whole search warrant, which we've seen before. When they went into Kohberger's apartment, this lists everything that they took, which I knew. Okay, so this is interesting. I saw this earlier. So I guess Kohberger was staying in a hotel at one point. I don't know if it was right when he moved to Pullman, Washington, but the clerk there says she went upstairs. I guess there was some issue with the cards to the room and he wanted a refund or something, or he might have overpaid. This was the clerk who went upstairs to see if Kohberger was going to check out at the appointed noon checkout time. As she approached his room to contact him, he was standing in the doorway leaving. As they walked down to the front desk, they talked about sheaths and collecting knives. That's interesting. Once at the front desk, they talked about self-defense weapons and their knife collections. That's interesting. He was talking about knife sheaths. Now this is just more of the same. Kohberger trying to dominate conversations in class. She noticed a bandage. This is after the homicide. Someone in class noticed a bandage on Kohberger's middle and ring fingers on his right hand. Kohberger told her it was from a silly accident that happened indoors. She didn't think it happened indoors because it looked like it had been scraped on asphalt. She believed she observed the injury prior to the homicides but was not certain. So they were really asking everybody. This is another one talking about Kohberger would go into his office where several female grad students worked and physically block the door. Once in a while, she would hear one of the female grad students say, "I really need to get out of here," and she would intercede by going into the office, allowing the female students to leave. Kohberger really wanted to study burglars. Kohberger had several feelings that regular burglars had nothing to do with sexually motivated burglars. Kohberger would show up anywhere from 10 minutes late to an hour late on occasion. Kohberger was obsessed with serial killers and would talk about it a lot in class. The week Kohberger was not in class, three female grad students approached her and said, "Oh my God, class was so much better today, like just easier to navigate." So no one liked him, it doesn't seem like. She felt like he was stalking people. She would not share his dissertation as a backup solution for kicking him out. I guess there was division over whether Kohberger's funding should be cut. So this went all the way up to the leadership, all of these complaints. Okay, this is interesting. So this is an interview with one of the inmates who was in the Latah County Jail with Bryan Kohberger. Now, this is after the arrest, okay, so fast forward. And I guess this inmate says they were in the same pod. After arriving in their pod, Kohberger immediately sat down and watched the news about his arrest. Watching multiple channels that were covering the story, Kohberger said, "Wow, I'm on every channel." Kohberger was very quiet and awkward. It was awkward having him in the pod. He was highly intelligent. His eyes were creepy. This is from the other inmate. Told him Kohberger said his favorite movie was American Psycho with Christian Bale. He enjoyed watching the news about his case unless it began talking about his family or friends, at which point he changed the channel immediately. As time continued, Kohberger stopped watching the news related to his case almost completely. He analyzed everything. He wanted to know why people had preferences on anything in the jail. He spent most of the time on his communication tablet talking with people, typically his blank, who he had told to retain an attorney. Washed his hands excessively, using 3 bars of soap per week. Showered every day and wanted new bedding and clothes every day. A lot of people saying was very smart. Also liked to watch court TV and was very interested in the Murdaugh trial. It's kind of interesting. Okay, sorry, these are a little out of order. Now going back to another person from his classes at Washington State that he would try to talk to her about another student about the Ted Bundy murders. This goes on and on. Another person who found Kohberger in her office and felt uncomfortable at the school, and had complained about it. That story just seems to keep repeating itself. So this is another person who went to school with Kohberger. Let me just make sure. Who said, I guess volunteered this, that Kohberger committed these homicides because he wanted to know what it felt like to commit these crimes in relation to his studies, and ultimately if he could get away with the crimes, further supporting his belief that he was smarter than others. Blank said committing these crimes and his need to control others is consistent with his personality. So that was sort of her take on what happened, one of the other people from the school. A lot of the same stuff here. After the homicides that occurred, he said he had a few grapes right now. He said this at a Christmas party. She noticed after the homicides He was in his office more, observed him often in his office. She assumed he was coming back from spring semester because he had asked about a theory class that they would be taking in the spring, so she thought he would be coming back. Said that Kohberger did not like the fact that she discounted the offender in studying sexual assault cases. He said she was being dismissive of the offender. He thought she should be focusing on the offender and what they left behind. He thought the offender had a strong impact on the crime rather than the victim. She said he thought he was dismissing what she was doing just to argue. Oh my gosh. So yeah, these stories just go on and on. I mean, like, I'm gonna go through all of this in more detail. I sort of gave it all a once over. I had never, I had reported on, I had talked to people who were in class with Kohberger who said some of this, but I had never really had this detail and knew that there were that many specific complaints and that women were that freaked out by him, sort of across the board, it seems like. So anyway, that's the latest from these 600 pages. I'm gonna go through it all again. I'll do more episodes, but I wanted to give you guys at least what stood out to me because I got all these documents today. I'll keep you guys posted. All right, thank you so much. Thanks for checking out my channel. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I'll talk to you guys later.